positive thinking is I'm going to be ready. Even if nothing ever happens, I'm still going to be ready because that means you're taking a proactive approach to your business.
Welcome to the podcast about communication in business. I'm your host, George Torok. Did you know that I'm known as the speech coach for executives? That's because I help business leaders deliver the intended message for greater success. And we do that through one-on-one coaching or group training for the team. When you listen to this podcast, you will hear insights and perspective from communication experts from around the world. My guest today is Angela Betancourt. Here's 3 facts that I think you should know about her. 1, she is a strategic communications expert with over 20 years of experience across 5 continents, helping business, nonprofits, political leaders, and startups clarify and amplify their messages, especially when the stakes are high. 2, she's founder of Betancourt Group, which specializes in working with purpose-driven organizations that are tackling today's urgent issues, from climate and sustainability to equity and innovation. And 3, Angela draws inspiration from her travels to over 30 countries with more to follow. Angela Betancourt, welcome to Your Intended Message.
George, thank you so much. What an intro. I feel this has just brightened up my whole day. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly a pleasure to be on your show.
Angela, delighted to be talking with you. And it's certainly a thrill because I know we're not only going to get practical advice, I know there's passion behind what you offer. And let's start with high stakes communication, high stakes messages. What issues, what problems cause people to stumble when they're tackling these high stakes issues? What do you usually find?
Usually I find that there is a bit of panic from not being prepared. Every organization, even personal brands, if it's just you, but organizations, businesses should have a crisis communication plan in place. And that is a general plan that could be customized to the crisis when it happens. But having kind of a foundational crisis communication plan is key. So when a crisis does come up, you have something to start from, you have something to build on. And that's key. Trying to scramble at the last minute when the heat is on and you're trying to figure out what to do, when to do it, how to do it, that usually does not make a great environment to solve problems as they arise. And so the number one thing I would say is have a plan, even if it's a basic plan. And what does that look like? What does that even sound like, right? That basically means, 1, what are your high risk areas, right? What are your high risk areas? What are the things? Because what's high risk for someone might not be high risk for someone else. And so you have to look at what are your vulnerabilities in your industry and in your space. And that's going to be one of the first things you want to establish. We've heard about, the good old SWOT analysis. Well, as old as that term has been, as around as it's been, it still applies today because it helps you identify what are your, strengths and opportunities are great, but what are your weaknesses and what are your threats? And from there is where you want to start building this broader crisis communications plan you can adjust as you go along.
And I can imagine that the area of risk will vary depending on the organization. A bank, of course, the risk to a bank might be fraud or something of that nature, which can be completely different from a risk to a manufacturing, which they might have union challenges, they might have environmental issues, they might have product failure. So depending on the organization, I guess it sounds silly for me to say this, but I guess it's a good idea to sit down saying, what could go wrong? What if things went wrong. And people don't like to have those discussions because, well, you're just
Mhm.
being negative. You're being negative. However, what do you say to people saying, well, hey, here's what we've done. We're not going to have these problems. What do you say to them to get over that and stop being negative?
I would say that unless you have a crystal ball and you can see into the future, sometimes things happen, and sometimes things happen that have nothing to do with you. Let's take a look at the technological landscape that we're in today and AI fraud. Somebody sets up a fake website that's imitating your company. And actually, you've seen this happen to some like very high level inspirational speakers and people that have these huge audiences. We've already seen this start to happen. Somebody sets up a fake AI website, and in today's day, oh my goodness, how on point, how precise these things can be. You're over here running your business, minding your own business, and suddenly this thing pops up, and now this fake website is stealing your customers' info, rediverting traffic from your website to a fake website, putting out fake text messaging. All kinds of things can happen that have absolutely, you've done nothing wrong, but now you've been targeted. That is a crisis because you could be doing all the right things, and congratulations to you. But there are outside forces and things that can happen. And when it does, and hopefully it never does, and positive thinking is, I'm going to be ready. Even if nothing ever happens, I'm still going to be ready, because that means you're taking a proactive approach to your business. That is very positive mentality, actually, because it's going to prepare you for anything that might happen, an outside force that you did not, you can't control. And so we have to think about those things. It's not always because you've done something wrong or something failed internally, which it can. We have to remember human error. We can make mistakes. Someone in your company can make a mistake. Somebody in your manufacturing plant can make a mistake. A machinery piece goes wrong. It was not serviced at the right time. It doesn't mean that you're not, doing a good job at operating your business. It just means that things happen. And when they do, you're going to have a plan. So it's not negative thinking, it's proactive thinking. It's actually positive to say, we're doing all the right things, but if an external thing comes along, we're going to be ready. And I can't think of anything more positive than that.
Mm. And I remember when I worked in a high story office building, every once in a while we'd have a fire drill. And it was always a pain. Oh, there's the fire. Oh, we really have to yeah, we have to go out. Oh, and you have to use the
Mhm.
stairs. You can't use the elevator. The elevator might not be safe. And I remember we do that, but yet I appreciate that we did, because it got people into the mindset of, okay, here's what I do automatically when I hear the fire alarm. I don't sit around and think, oh, it's probably not on my floor, or it's probably just fake. It's probably not real. We have to react and be ready. And so
Absolutely.
do you get people to rehearse different scripts depending on, what if this goes wrong? What if this happens?
Yes, and it's sometimes it's a script and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just scenario, right? It's not, a on the dot thing, right? Because it's hard, of course, to predict what to do, what to say when a crisis happens, but it's good to know the broader game plan, if you will, of when something does go wrong. You have your reminders, right? When things go wrong, that's the time to really dig into your values, your company values. That's the time to lead it to transparency. That's the time to lead into rapid communication, right? You want to keep people up to date. So there's definitely techniques that you want to remember when the time comes, right? You don't want to say, well, it's Wednesday and today is, and maybe it's a Saturday, right? Or it's like, you don't need that rigidity, but you do need that foundational scenarios that you kind of play out in your head when stuff goes off key. It's also good to have your key messages intact, right? Something happens, you want to, number one, remember who you are as a company and act accordingly. That's based on your values. And you want to keep in mind that integrity and honesty and transparency are always going to be the way to go. So that doesn't mean having a word by word script. That means if something happens in your company, in your organization, and you don't know what's going on, but you're addressing it, that's what you say. I don't know what's going on. We're looking into it. We're going to get back to you. You don't sit silent, and you definitely don't lie. And so you lean into these kind of basic principles and go from there.
And one phrase that people should avoid, from what I've heard, is not to say no comment, because that in itself is a comment. And it
It is.
perhaps seems like one is evading.
Yes. Yes. The no comment is extremely tricky. It's extremely, extremely tricky of when you're going to use that, right? Because what does that even mean? You probably have something to say, and whomever is asking probably knows that you have something to say, and you're just not saying it because you're avoiding and evading, and you're right. And that's an extremely tricky situation. I mean, if you're doing a press conference and people start yelling absurdities at you, or then I could see where a no comment, because you just don't want to justify a question that's just absurd, right? Like, but in a crisis situation, and again, we've seen this happen, and I think where it's extremely important too is if you're in a big corporation and you're having this big crisis, the no comment, no. There's always the I don't know the facts yet. Give me 24 hours and we'll get you the facts. There's always, generally don't know what happened, but we're doing every single thing. Here are the steps that we're taking to get to the bottom of it. We're going to get back to you in this amount of time. The no comment is vague. It actually can have the opposite effect of what you're probably intending. And so be honest and lean into transparency. And if you don't know something, right? There was a manufacturing failure and you just don't know what caused it. You have to look into it. That can take some time. Let people know that and keep them updated. Okay. It's like 24 hours. We're going to get back to you with what we first learned, what we've learned about this, what we have figured out, right? We're looking into this. This is a serious issue. These are the people that are involved, right? Where's the proactive? When something goes wrong, people want to know that it's being handled, that it's being worked on, that it's being resolved. And then once it's resolved, people want to know, what are you going to do to not let that happen again? Or what steps you're going to implement to say that here's what we're doing to solve this problem. We realized what happened. This is what we're going to do to avoid it happening again in the future. These are the types of responses that are going to help you work yourself out of a crisis.
Angela, we've been exploring high stakes from a crisis view. Let's flip the view and look at high stakes from a more positive endeavor. For example, launching a new product line, or making an acquisition, or coming out with a new technology where the stakes are high. How is that similar to a crisis, and how is it different? How do we approach that?
Yes, and that's a great question. So thank you so much, George, for bringing that up. Because on one side, when you have a crisis, it's negative. Crises, unfortunately, are usually a negative thing, and you are more likely to be reactive and on the defense. And there's a lot of pressure and stress, and things have to be navigated strategically. And there's a lot that kind of goes into that process, right? That we just kind of talked about. When something good is happening and it's high stakes, interestingly enough, you're probably still feeling pressure and uncertainty and the what ifs, right? There's always the, well, what if this doesn't go, right? And it's really easy to kind of get caught up in that. And I think that there are some similarities. Some of the similarities here are, go back to the basics. And we've heard big CEOs and people, say, let's, we have to go back to day one mentality and all of that, because it really goes back to when you're launching something new, you have to remember why you're launching that. And I don't mean obviously because it's a new product, but why? Because you realize it's going to benefit your customer. It's going to be innovative in the world. It's going to make it easier, faster, more secure for your customers, right? You want to think about what are those positive attributes that make this so exciting. And when those doubts start creeping in, what if this happens? What if, right? You want to kind of remember those foundational things about what this new launch means for your customer and why you're doing it. And again, you want to lead with that transparency if there's going to be shipping delays, and actually this is a really interesting case on that, because there was that new wine launch by Meghan Markle and her As Ever brand, and they oversold product and ended up having to refund people. I tried to get in on that and my thing got canceled before I even hit because it just sold out so fast. And I'm like, well, that's a lovely problem to have, right? Oh my goodness. So many people, say what you will about her. Everyone has their strong opinions, but it doesn't change the fact that the product was in such high demand that it almost broke her site, really, is what happened there. So what happened, right? The news articles started coming out. People's orders were canceled, this, that, and the other. When you're doing a product launch, right, you have to think about, and maybe she underestimated what the demand was going to be, but you want to take those things into account, right? Well, what if we oversell? What if the product actually isn't that great and people are going to want to refund? Well, they want to return the product. You want to think all of these things through ahead of your launch. Okay, so you want to think about what can possibly go wrong. What if we sell too much? What if we don't sell enough? What if people want to return the product? What is our return policy? So when you're going to launch something, you still want to think about what can go wrong. Still want to do your SWOT analysis because you don't want it to turn into a crisis, right? I think Megan's team is kind of in that place right now where are we handling this crisis of being, sold out? And you want to think like that. You want to think, what is my SWOT analysis to launch this product to avoid there being a crisis? And then I would also say communication is key. I think it's really great to continue to remind people how this launch aligns with your brand and why you're doing it. Because I've also seen, unfortunately, where launching something that doesn't align with the brand and your brand voice and your personality, it doesn't speak authentic, that can lead to a crisis as well. And so launching something new is wonderful and exciting. We still want to do a SWOT analysis on that to avoid the crisis. But also I want to say that celebrate the little wins, because it's hard. You're out there running a business. You're out there putting your message, your intended message out into the world, right, George? And you want to celebrate those things as well and give yourself a little bit of grace as well, because it's hard. It's hard to run a business. It's hard to launch a product. It's hard to create a product to begin with. And now you've gotten to the place where you want to launch it. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to you. And remember, those are the little wins that matter. And celebrate a good launch. You had a great launch, celebrate that. And make sure to remember to thank your customer and thank the people that made this launch a success, because nothing is ever launched on its own. Even if you launched it by yourself, someone helped you somewhere along the way, a platform, a software, something has helped you on this journey, your team, right? And so thanking all of the people that made it successful is key.
And I agree with you on the importance of thanking the people that contributed. However, I'm also thinking what came to my mind is when at the Academy Awards, when the winner they thank a bunch of people in their speech, and I always think that feels phony. They don't really mean it. They're just so in love with themselves because they got this award. And I imagine that what you suggest is that people be thankful in a more substantive way, something
Yes.
more than just a, thank you in a speech kind of thing. And what works well there in thanking people?
Yes. And so you're right, George, you're so right. I've seen some people get up on that stage and it's like, thank you to the Academy and da, 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 da. But some people get up there and they get up there with the message of gratitude. And you can tell when it's authentic. And so you can have two people going up to that stage to accept the award, and the one that's just kind of going through the motions. But then you have the one that's up there and you can just tell that they're grateful and in how they think the people that genuinely help them. And obviously, if you're winning an award, great. Definitely thank people, because those names that you're reading out loud don't mean anything to me. I don't know those people. But if you are listening to your name, that's special, right? But I also think there are so many other ways. You can thank people on social media. You can put a spotlight on someone else that really helped to shine that light on this launch. You can do a whole blog post about it. You can really celebrate the people and the team behind what happened. I think another way to show gratitude, and this is something that I think that comes into the storytelling narrative, is to do that behind the scenes recap of what it was like to get from that first idea to that, right? If you have lessons that you've learned post crisis, share those lessons, because that basically demonstrates that it's a way of showing, look, I'm grateful for this experience. We don't always get it right. Here's what I've learned. You can use this maybe on your journey. I think that's a beautiful way to showcase, to share and to continue to kind of put good information out there, good wisdom out there is a form of gratitude. And someone else might be grateful to receive the information that you put out there, right? And so one of the things, when I think about people accepting their awards and they thank the stunt team, I know that they mean it. I know that they're like, listen, I know I looked cool in this film running over trains, but that wasn't all me. There was someone out there who risked their ankles and wrists and all of that to do it. So I may look really cool on screen, but we had a whole team of stunt people, and that's you're putting the credit on other people, the people that helped you look good. You put a spotlight on them, and that applies across the board, no matter what you're doing. And I see this from people that are motivational speakers, and they get up on stage and they're like, look, I had a makeup artist that did all of this that made me look glowy, or whatever the word is of the day. There's always someone who's helping you. And so to show that gratitude, I think, is extremely important, and to do it in a way that's authentic to you.
Thank the stunt team. That is so revealing, because, of course, Hollywood is so much about is fake and making things look bigger and better than they really are. And then when a person can say, well, there were some details behind the scenes. Those were the people that made me shine, made me look good. And
yes.
And they deserve appreciation. And many of them are nameless because they just did their job.
Correct. Who are the stunt people in your own lives? Who are the stunt people in your own life, in your business, that because we all have them, and we might not even think we do, but I really believe that we do, because I have mine for sure. People that just help me every day look good. And sometimes it's family, sometimes it's friends, but we have them. And so it's good to think about those people that are in our corner when we're doing things, when we're about to launch something, and also when we're in the middle of a crisis and they remind us that we're going to get through it.
Angela, tell us about the power of story in dealing with these high stakes presentations, these high stakes messaging. Do they always need a story? And what's the guideline for the story?
Yes, there's always a story. There's the origin story. How did you even come about? How did you start? How did you get here? Those are all stories. The idea behind the product, that's a story. The idea behind the service that you're offering, how did you get there? my story of how I started doing this specific work, because I've been in PR and marketing for 20 years, but it's the last couple of years that I've been focused on environmental and social impact. And a lot of what shifted that to me was the 2 years that I spent living in Sierra Leone. That was a huge turning point. The things that I did there and saw there and experienced there shifted things so dramatically for me when I came back to the States. I'm like, this is where I need my focus to be. And so we all have the stories of, you have your story, George, about why you started this podcast, right? There's always that intention, as your intention behind what you're doing. And that intention is usually rooted in some kind of narrative. And so I always ask people to explore what that is. And in the high stakes space, it comes down to, I think about being in Sierra Leone during the Ebola crisis. And I mean, to say there's a million stories there is an understatement. But sometimes you have to just think about, what is this bigger narrative that we're trying to share right now? And when you look at some of the stories that were being told about people fearing ambulances and the work that the incredible people on the ground did to try to say, no, ambulances are okay. You don't have to hide from the ambulance. I mean, I can't think of it. That's a huge crisis where lives are on the line. We've seen it here in the States and around the world with COVID. These stories that come up around political narratives, especially around political narratives, right? Because shutting down entire economies and shutting down countries is a feat, right? And so the stories that have come from that, and the YouTube channels that launched because of that, and the good news movements that launched because of that. So there's always these stories that we tell ourselves, but also you have to think about, well, what's the story that you're trying to tell? What do you want people to do? And sometimes that instruction, if you will, is best told through a narrative. And so if you're looking for, well, how do I tell the story of this product launch? Well, how did you get here? And what's your origin story as a business? And let's tell that story. Let's look at the stories of the people on your team. What's driving them and motivating them? So there are stories everywhere that you can tell that are going to help explain your service, explain what it is that you're trying to accomplish. You can also tell stories in the world you're trying to help create, right? What is your intention that you want to see happen? I can't solve the climate crisis by myself, but I'd like to elevate the stories of the people that are out there fighting that fight. Helping more audiences to learn about the organization, learn about the startup, because I feel that could be my contribution as a business owner. I feel that could be the way that I help, right? And so, because I want to see these stories get told more broadly to more people. And so my story is how it aligns with this narrative. So in the world of high stakes, when there's something going on, the story can be how you communicate a message. The story can be how you justify and explain what it is that you're trying to achieve. The story can be how you come back from a crisis and get back to what you're trying to do and that origin story.
Angela, for people who'd like to know more about you and your services, they can find you at your website, and the website is groupbetancourt.com, and you can find that link in the description below. As we prepare to wrap up, imagine you're meeting with a business leader and they are about to go into a new product launch. It's a high stakes product launch. If there's 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice that you would offer them as they are preparing, what might that be?
The first is know what your risks are. Do the SWOT analysis around this launch. Okay, that's going to be really important. Here are the 10 things that could possibly go wrong. Here are the 10 things we're going to do if those things happen. Have that plan. Best case scenario, your product sells out, breaks the web, breaks the internet. You have people calling. People don't call. What am I saying? People texting, DMing you, whatever it is, whatever's going on. People are emailing, your inbox is blowing up. What are you going to do? And who are your designated people that are allowed to talk about this? Is it yourself? Do you have a communications person on your team that's going to handle, right? So have that plan, have the execution. What are your methods of communicating with people? So that's all part of this kind of SWOT analysis. Have that game plan ready. Who are the people? What are the different distribution methods of communication? Email, newsletter, LinkedIn post. Have that general plan together. That's going to be the main thing, because that's the foundation. So have your game plan. If something goes wrong, here are the 10 different ways you can approach that. The second thing I would say is remember why you're launching this and make sure that it aligns with your messaging and your brand and who you are as a company. And this is still part of that kind of SWOT analysis, but I emphasize it separately because I think this is a really big one that can lead to a lot of crisis if not managed properly. If this product does not align with what you're trying to achieve, maybe have some meetings before you launch, just so that it comes across you're launching something that's authentic and true to who you are. So that's the thing I would say. Next is I think it's a great idea to have your launch strategy, right? What are the graphics, the imagery, the messaging, the exciting bits, right? The marketing plan, what is the execution plan on this? You're going to have a social media. Is this a social media launch? Are you launching this via just your website? And if so, right? Like, what is the marketing plan? Have a good marketing plan. What are your avenues that you can launch this product? I would say if it's something that's newsworthy, write that press release and send it out. Okay, this is a great one, because I think that, again, the world and your target audience and your community should know that this is launching. And so write that press release. If you don't know how, find someone like me to write that press release and to help create that execution plan, because that's going to be what's going to make this a success. If people don't know you've launched, then how can people buy into what you're trying to sell? And so have a good plan. I think also don't be afraid to do something fun. The world can be heavy sometimes. And so think about how can this delight? And we've heard about this from a long time ago. And some of the biggest marketing gurus of our time have talked about it, the art of delighting your customer, and that extra surprise and that extra mile. Customer service might look different, but it's still customer service, and make sure that you have that, right? Whether that's somebody responding to DMs on Instagram or someone replying to emails that come in about the product, customer service is still super, super important. And I don't want people to forget that.
All positive advice. My guest today is Angela Betancourt, reminding you to remember to thank the stunt team. If you like what you heard, tell your friends and post your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because that helps more listeners find us. Come back every week for more practical insights to help you deliver your intended message. I'm your host, George Torok.